Hello, John Bloodworth Gentleman Crafter here with more fun with foundation paper piecing. This time part 5 where we're doing a 3-log cabin pattern. I've given you the dimensions within the cutting sheet that you can download from my blog gentlemancrafter.com, and this will allow you to cut various strips in different sizes to fit all of the different parts. Very little trimming involved, although we will do a little. I've printed the pattern onto foundation paper piecing paper. Obviously you can use alternatives like tracing paper, but the ability to see through that sheet to the printing itself, as you can see, is actually really important when it comes to foundation paper piecing. I'm going to start by positioning my central square, and I've included a dotted positioning guide for that as well, so you can see exactly where to place it. I'm then going to get the strip that is for part 2 and position that with the fabric facing down, or the pattern side facing down, towards the central square, which is pattern facing up. I'm then going to pin it in place, just for security, but you can freehand this. And then I'm going to remove the T-coaster and start sewing. Now I sew along the dashed line between parts 1 and 2 only. I'm not sewing beyond it, so basically needle down, do a lock stitch of some sort, sew along the line and then lock at the end. I'm using a reverse stitch as my sewing machine doesn't have a lock stitch. Basically it's just to secure the start and the end. When you're done, trim. Trim those threads. Obviously remember to use a very short stitch spacing, because that will help you tear away the paper at the end when you've sewn your quilt top together. Take out the pin and then press back part 2. I'm using a Teflon bone folder or presser, finger presser, whatever you want to call it. Obviously if you have a little mini iron and a pressing sheet, you can do that at this stage. That does give you nice crisp seams to work with and to position your next piece of fabric. I'm quite happy to just press at the end. Next up you're going to position part 3, and that will line up exactly along the edge of parts 1 and 2. See, makes it so much easier. We're basically working in a spiral fashion all the way round, and I've organised the cutting sheet on that basis. So again, you're starting at the beginning of the dash line between parts 1 and 2 and 3, stitching all the way down, and then trimming the threads when you're done. As with every step, you'll press back this part 3. And basically when you press it back, it should go over the next line by about 1/4 of an inch. You can double check this by trimming, but I've tried to get these pieces as close as possible to the actual size of the pieces needed, so that we're avoiding waste. Next up we're going across to part 4, lining that up against parts 1 and 3. Stitching down the dashed line as normal. And just while I'm doing that, please do remember I have a Facebook group where you can share your block progress as we're making these throughout the year. So if you'd like to, please do check out the links below the video on YouTube, or of course on the blog post itself where you see this. There's a few members already, and they're already sharing what they're making, and it's great to see, so thank you to those people. It's always good to see the different patterns or fabrics that you're using. Again, folding back the piece and pressing down. Next up, part 5. Pin that in place and stitch. Now, as I say, you can use tracing paper for this, but that's actually quite a sheer paper, so you might find that your sewing machine foot slips on it. That's why I tend to use this particular type of paper, foundation paper piecing paper, because it has a rough texture. Can't guarantee it's not going to slip, but so far it's been working beautifully. And it takes the inkjet printing really well as well. Folding back, pressing down, and you can already see that log cabin pattern forming. Now, if you're not sure where the pieces are, you can always turn the pattern over and see. And you're always working with the fabric face down as you position them and stitch. Now, I don't have a plan of what to do with these at the end, so really it's up to you what order you stitch them together, or whether you stitch them together at all, or just keep them as a little block library for yourself. Just grab yourself a folder and stick them all in. There'll be 50 overall throughout the year, so hopefully that will give you an idea of what size folder to buy. And of course you can make a quilt top that contains all the same block style, or even just mix and match between the ones that we're going to create. January was very similar, and February I'm basically mixing up strips. So the first 3 in February are going to be using strips to create different patterns. And then at the end of February we've got one where we're mixing triangles with strips as well. So we're building in confidence as we work throughout the year. Later in the year we'll be introducing some more complex patterns. So hopefully you're looking forward to those. And perhaps towards the end of the year, I'll also give you a guide on how to create your own. And you can see how quickly this block comes together, as we're almost done. Just 2 pieces to go. Make sure you stitch as close to that dashed line as possible, as it will make a difference to whether the pieces fit. You can see how little leeway I've kind of included. I wanted to be as frugal as possible. So hopefully, actually, there will be no waste with this particular pattern. In the download, I've also included a guide on how many blocks you would need to create certain size projects. So if you're hoping to create cushion covers, small lap quilts, or even large king-size quilts, you'll have an idea of how many you need to make. Every single block this year will be the same size. They will give you a finished size of 3 inches. Okay, last part coming up, and that's part 8. Sorry, 9. When I get to the longer strips, I tend to pin twice just to hold it along the length of that strip. Try and avoid running your foot over those pins though, because that may distort the stitching or even damage your needle or even the pin. After you've sewn that last strip, trim the threads again. We'd also take the pins out and fold back as normal. And I haven't shown it in this video, but you would also trim to the solid outer line so that you end up with just the block. The goal is that you shouldn't see any of the paper beyond the solid line, or even inside the solid line, sorry. You should just see the fabric. And there we go, the 3-log cabin.